So we must do two things, two great things together, to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself. All right, so we're looking at the first subtone of life. We started to take the text, and I think I interrupted myself somewhere along the way before we finished, because we touched upon that idea of abundance, and we're seeing that this is really the infinite individuality of life. Life is not infinite individuality all by itself, but only in relationship to the fact that life is mind, spirit, soul, and principle. We have an order. We have the word order. We have the word of life that we are looking at in the days of creation. So that, let's go back and take that first text. And God said, let the waters bring forth. Now we said the waters are the second day, but you have to also be so flexible in your symbols and in your tonality that you know that those waters are the elements of mind, aren't they? Let the waters, the elements of mind, bring forth abundantly. And bring forth abundantly what? The moving creature. A terrific sense of life, that something is moving. Well, we saw that the principle is moving, isn't it? Principle is moving within itself. Somehow one gets the mistaken concept that we have a fourth point and there's this great system and it's all working and working, and then something comes out of it, and we call that life. But life is within the principle, isn't it? Life is the system in operation, in movement, and bringing forth new, continually new generations or restructurings of itself. And this is the movement of the system, and that system brings forth abundantly the moving creature. So you have a sense really of the an individual form of creation coming forth out of that principle. And every individual form that is created has life, is of the nature of life. And fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. There is the firmament of heaven now again, and we have the fowl that fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. The fowl really giving us another aspect of life, namely the exaltation of life. The soaring aspirations, as Mrs. Eddy says in the marginal heading. So life, we see, is metaphysical. It is ideational. Can you feel that? Do you follow that? Life as mind. In our epitome, we see that life is metaphysical. Let the waters, let the elements of mind bring forth. This is the metaphysical sense, the ideational sense, that those ideas that we have seen in the system of metaphysics are bringing something forth. They are life. So things begin to move in a life, and we see that we have multiplication there, we said, abundance, exaltation. It's where we rise above any sense of limitation, rising above the earth in the open firmament of heaven into that realm of ideas, you see, rising into the realm of ideas. That's our exaltation, because life is above the physical. It is metaphysical. Now we have something very, very beautiful happening in the fifth day in life, because we can look at life through its four subtones. You know that we haven't talked really about God's telephone number, as John Dorley calls it. Namely, those 29 subtones being 3355472, right? Huh? I'm so glad there's always someone in the class who has not heard that before. It's so encouraging for me to go on. This is showing us the number of subtones that are necessary at each day in that order. And when we come to the fifth day, we see that we have four subtones. So these four are life as mind, life as spirit, life as soul, and life as principle. Or we can see that they are the Word as the Word as the Christ, the Word as Christianity, and the Word as science. What is happening in this fifth day? Life is showing us, first of all, that it is cybernetically based, that it is cybernetic. Life is an infinite circle. Life circles back on what life is. There is a cycle of life versus the mortal cycle. And that cycle of life, or circle of life, is that life always returns to mind, spirit, soul, principle. Life says, that's what I am. I am mind, I am spirit, I am soul, I am principle. And you see that we've seen that with each movement from one day to the next day, or from one synonymous term to the next synonymous term. When we went from mind to spirit, we said spirit always returns to mind. Spirit always falls back on mind. When we came to soul, we said soul always uses the rule of soul. Soul always goes back to mind and spirit. When we came to principle, we said principle is actually mind, spirit, and soul. Maybe we didn't make that as distinct as the other examples, but principle is mind, spirit, and soul. That's the creative principle. That was the office of soul, to identify every idea with principle. And so principle, in turn, says, well, I am mind, spirit, and soul. I am the creative principle. And now when we come to life, we see that life is not just life, but life is mind, spirit, soul, principle. So we find in the fifth day that there are four subtones. So life would say, I, life, am mind, I am spirit, I am soul, I am principle. Right? So life begins to take the days of creation sense too, as John Dorley could see. He could see that as he touched life in those days of creation, that a days of creation sense began to go out of the picture. That when you come to life, there is, no sense of time, any vestige of a time feeling goes out. There is only eternity. And he would say that the days of creation melt into the Word of God, into the Word of life. And so he could see that the Word is not only mind, spirit, soul, and principle, but that Word is Word as Word, Word as Christ, Word as Christianity, and Word as science. That those same four tones are expressing both the recapping of the first 4 days of creation to show that this is life, and a lifting of the word order, because it is the word of life, into its calculus form, into the calculus, into its own calculus. Word as Word, Word as Christ, Word as Christianity, and Word as science. So when you take that sense of the calculus in the 5th day, you hear that it's when we say the time sense goes out, we mean more a sense of developing, a developing sense, what would you say, a building up sense, you see, of building from mind to spirit to soul to principle to life and so forth. The whole tone is beginning to change and to ascend in the order, to ascend. So those four then, of the Word as the Word, Christ, Christianity, and science, are bringing out first the sense of the Father as the Word, the sense of the Son as the Christ, the sense of the Mother as Christianity, and the interpretation really of those three as one in science. So we can touch on that now as we go through these tones. We've already talked a bit about generally about that tone, that first subtone of life as mind, seeing that the ideational sense, the metaphysical sense, is certainly showing us that life is mind. Life is metaphysical. And now what do we see if we shift our orientation to the calculus, to the Word as the Word? We see that let the waters, which is the elements of thought, the elements of mind, bring forth abundantly the moving creature that has life, is the creative sense of life as the Father. Can you hear that? It's a creative sense on a higher basis than before. This is the Father. So the sense of creation now is shifting to the demonstration of the ideal of the principle. What is the ideal of the principle of principle? The ideal in synonymous terms? Life, truth, and love. If we think of life, truth, and love being the ideal, you're not wrong. You weren't wrong. There were just different orientations to the system, and I perhaps wasn't very clear in the question, but it is the the shift now, you see, away from the creative sense of that principle as mind, spirit, and soul, to what that principle is demonstrating, and it is demonstrating its own ideal as life, truth, and love. There is a shift now to looking out from principle, out from the divine principle, you see. It's not working up through mind, spirit, and soul to principle, but a sense of that principle, that creative principle, demonstrating itself as life, truth, and love. So there's a change from the objective to the subjective. This is really the office of the Christ to make that happen. You have to remember now your big overall orientation, Word as Christ. We're still in the Word as the Christ. Okay? In terms of the whole order, we're in the Word as the Christ. Embedded within the Word as the Christ at the point of life is the Word as the Word. And the Word as the Christ, as we'll see, in that fifth day of creation. So that we have that change. Isn't it terrific? I mean, okay, say you can't grasp it all. Don't worry about it, because it makes you feel, gosh, there's some further reason to look into this subject of the days of creation. I can't just get it all in 4 or 5 days. It's so big. How about 400 or 500 years, huh? So now the idea is seen to be ideal, and the accent is on life at this point. And when we touch principle, you see, when we touch principle, the idea that has been brought forth by mind, spirit, and soul has become principles, becomes principles ideal. Life, truth, and love. Does that make any sense at all?
We touch principle where? In what part?
In the order. In the order of the days.
So
The moment
what we
we,
just seen.
yeah,
Okay.
when we fulfill the constituency of principle, then we touch the ideal. We can't help but be moved on to the ideal of that principle, which is first seen to be life. Okay. Now, what's going on in the second record? The epitome for life in the second record is that a knowledge of both good and evil. Gosh, this just seems to run right through the whole of the second record, this good and evil thing, this duality.
Yeah.
A knowledge of both good and evil brings death. Death to spiritual sense. We become the walking around dead. When your spiritual sense is dead, you're dead. Yeah. Death to the spiritual sense, demoralization. And so as mind, what are we going to see? That the method of mortality, what is method? What a synonymous term? Life. Rests on dualistic knowledge. Counterfeit of life as mind. So there we've had in the first record those waters bringing forth abundantly, the moving creature that has life. That's what comes out of our isomorphy with the principle, our oneness with the principle, being structured by a principle through its system and its science. We have that sense of the moving creature that has life coming forth, fowl that may fly in the open earth, in the open firmament above the earth. So it's a lifting sense, it's an upward sense, it's an onward sense. We feel the freedom that life gives us, the exaltation that life gives us, the multiplication that a knowledge of life gives us, a knowledge of metaphysics, a knowing of metaphysics. A metaphysical system of ideas gives us that. Divine science with its system gives us that. And over and against that, it says, "And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, of this tree of the knowledge of good and evil," here it's ideational knowledge versus dualistic knowledge, "that your eyes shall be opened." Your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods. Can you hear that? The false individualization of life. Knowing good and evil. How is God principle falsely individualized? As gods, that we would become as little gods. You see. So it's very precise. Ye shall be as gods. This is the counterfeit of life, the dualistic knowledge of mind is what leads to that false individualization. It's the basis of that false individualization. And your eyes shall be opened. So there is really a false sense of being opened. Actually, even the mortal wants to become an open system. Even the mortal wants to open up. And this is what divine love is actually bringing about, the opening up of the system. But here you have it on the false basis. How do we open up? Only by being absolutely one with principle. Shaped by principle, structured by principle, informed by that principle, and consequently by the tree of life. That tree of life is the way of life for us. It is because it's the tree of the word of life. That this life opens us up. And only partaking of that tree, of the system of that tree, of the knowledge of that tree, which is ideational, can give us our true individuality, leads to the true individuality of man. This is our food, this is our sustenance, this is our what promotes life, what brings forth life, what lifts us. Don't we know that when we go to the system? We know it, that we are lifted upward and onward and outward into the openness of life. So here we have the exact opposite of that. And yet there's something good in it. There's something progressive in it. Remember we said there's those gleams of light, those bits of light which are holistic are there, that this opening up is going to lead the mortal conception right out of itself. So that every step, every stage of that second record is a successful thing, because it's their eyes were opened. What were they going to see? The nakedness of the mortal condition, the depravity of the mortal condition, the emptiness of it, you see, the demoralization that's involved in it. Yeah, so here's the method. Go ahead, Trust that dualistic knowledge, because you will still be led out of the mortal condition. Love is there. Love is right there. I always think of Mrs. Eddy saying that when she was standing already within the valley of the shadow of death, that she discovered these truths in divine science, that divine science was right there leading her out of that valley, out of that shadow, into life. So, ye shall be as gods. To be a god, you see, a mortal then is becoming like God, becoming a creator. That's why we see afterwards that there is the proliferation of mortality, the bringing forth of Cain and Abel and the whole mortal family, so to say. So it's a false sense of being a father, false fatherhood sense, the counterfeit of that infinite revelation of the word of life, word as the word, that your eyes shall be opened. This is running counter to the revelation of life, of the word of life. All right, so we come to life as spirit. Here we reach the final subtone in the break, that great break that we've been looking at of the Word as the Christ. Hasn't that been a marvelous thing? Don't you feel you know the Christ so much better from those days of creation that bring out the Word as the Christ? And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly, and every winged fowl after his kind. There you have the after his kind. This is the sense of spirit, the likeness. And God saw that it was good. This is spirit. It was of the quality of God. And our epitome is that life individualizes itself in spiritual natures, after his kind. You see, they have the same kind of a nature as their origin. Spirit is symbolized, she says, by strength, presence, power, by holy thoughts, winged with love. It's funny she equates that being winged, holy thoughts being winged with love with the winged fowl. That these are the angels of his presence, that the angels of his presence have holiest charge, that they abound in the spiritual atmosphere of mind, that they reproduce their own characteristics. Here's the great climax of the Word as the Christ. They reproduce their own characteristics. Now we're in life and seeing the closing out of this tone of the Word as the Christ. Their individual forms we know not, but we know that their natures, spirit, are allied to God's nature, spirit. I should have really been telling you when it's spirit, when it's life, and so forth. You see that she speaks of the spirit being symbolized here in life as spirit by strength, that's spirit, by presence, this is life, and power, by holy thoughts, winged with love, the sense of life. They are the angels of his presence, life. They have holiest charge. That sense of having a holy charge has a touch of that spiritual quality about it. They abound, this is life, in the spiritual atmosphere, spirit of mind. They reproduce their own, what is this? Huh? Like producing like, yes, like producing like, also in the service of the Word as the Christ, reproducing their own characteristics, their individual form, life, we know not, but their natures, spirit, are allied, a coincidence of the Word as the Christ with God's nature, spirit. Spiritual blessing, spirit, is thus typified as the subjective state of faith and spiritual understanding. Word as Christ, the subjective state. The office of the Christ is being fulfilled. It's been made subjective. So we get, as the Word, as the Christ, then really three great statements here that they reproduce their own characteristics. You get the abundant translation that their natures are allied to God's nature, that sense of the identity, the subjectivity, oneness of subject and object, and the subjective state of faith, of spiritual understanding. Again, subject and object one, so that we come to the climax of that great point of intersection of soul, principle, and life. You know, in the Dorley matrix, we had that as identity, and now we've seen how that identity is translated to the generative sense, the days of creation sense, and it comes to its climax. And if we look at the second subtone of life, life as spirit, in the calculus way, what do we have? The Word as the Christ. Everybody with me? Is everybody happy? Huh? Are you with me? Yeah? Huh? Good. Wonderful.
Do you happen to have the Dorley matrix acetate?
Yes, I do.
It would be fun if you could maybe relate that.
Yeah, yes. So we are just at the point of life, right, in the Word as the Christ. If we go back to the roots of what we are seeing in the subtones within the days of creation, those breaks, we know that they have their root in the Dorley matrix and in the word order. And so we are looking at the Word as the Christ. We are just coming to the climax of the Word as the Christ. We are in life. It's soul, principle, life there. It's all to do with identity. And how that identity is shown forth in the days of creation as the seed within itself, the ability to reproduce and translate itself abundantly. What is reproducing and translating itself abundantly? The creative elements of mind, spirit, and soul. Yeah. So here in the second subtone of life, then, we can see that this is also the Word as the Christ, and it is characterized by the Son, the Christ. It's a subjective sense. A subjective sense, yeah. You see that it's as though there's been a complete reproducing, the reproduction of the Father. What is the reproduction of the Father? It's the Son, isn't it? It's the Son. When you have a reproduction, you have something that is reproduced. The definition of it is to be reproduced, especially in faithfulness of its resemblance to the form and elements of the original. This is the Son, isn't it? This is the Christ. The relationship of the Christ to the Word, the relationship of the Son to the Father. It's a faithful reproduction. It's a subjective sense, isn't it? Subject and object are one. This is the office of the Christ to establish that. So again, you see that this is brought out that in the very same ways, really, that we have seen that the angels of his presence have charge. They have holiest charge. They are in charge. They are in control. It's the sense of the control of the Christ, the reproducing. They reproduce their own characteristics, the reproducing of the identity. This is what the Christ does. The Son reproduces the identity of the Father. Their natures are allied to God's nature. You have the coincidence of the Christ. Christ bringing out the coincidence. Really, the office of the Christ is to bring out the coincidence between God and man in his image and likeness. They have individual forms. So you have the individualization office of the Christ. The office of translating is one of individualizing. You know this now from the Christ translation, that you see that in the first translation, where it is God, a man idea, that man is characterized as individual, perfect, and eternal. It's individual man. This is always the office of the Christ as the order moves from principle to mind, to individualize the principle. And they are the subjective states. These winged fowl are the subjective states of spiritual understanding. The subjectivity, subject and object made one by the Christ. All climaxing the word as the Christ tone in the whole order of the 7 days. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, wow. I don't think anybody else has done that ever, what you just did.
I don't know.
Can
Never
you
done
kind
it.
of give me the big picture? We started in
Okay.
the Word. You got the primal element.
In the beginning, God.
Yeah, right. We've got the primal elements in the Word, and we see that through from mind, spirit, and soul.
Yes.
And then we realize, and that is how do you explain that that's objective? That's just what God is. Is that how it's explaining that that's objective?
Yeah, life, when you come to life, life looks back on that. But it takes the days of creation sense out of it. It's lifting the days of creation into the calculus.
Okay.
You know how she says the 7 days become numerals of infinity, and thought it begins to accept the divine infinite calculus. That's actually beginning to happen in consciousness in the 5th day. The values of the days are being lifted into numerals, into more timeless values, and as they are further lifted, they are seen to be the calculus operating. So, now what was the question?
We've got this chart here, and we've got mind, spirit, and soul, and that's all in the Word.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just saying that Word is the primal elements of being.
Yes.
And so then we're finding out that Word is actually the Christ, that word comes to
Yeah.
each one of us. It's not just out there. It is that truth is our truth. That mind, spirit, and soul is our identity.
Yeah.
Is our principle and is our life. Is that what the Christ is saying?
That's one aspect of it, yeah. But the more to the point aspect would be that mind, spirit, and soul, up to the point of soul as spirit, present the primal creative elements of God. You want to say that? Then,
Show that on the overhead.
yeah, thank you. Right? So you have the three of mind, the three of spirit, and the first two subtones of soul, presenting the primal creative elements that are primary, basic, fundamental to the whole of creation. Established. Then the Christ comes in and takes that idea, that identity of mind, spirit, and soul, and says this is itself so complete that it can reproduce itself without end. It has the seed within itself. It can bring forth itself without end. Needs nothing more from outside. Nothing. There is nothing outside.
I hear the Catholics starting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So that's word as Christ. And it takes all of those tones, soul as soul, through the end of soul at life, and then all five of the subtones of principle, and these first two subtones of life to bring that out fully, that abundant translation of the primal elements.
And somehow that's subjective.
It's the office of the Christ to render subject and object one. Yeah?
I think, Sue, one of the other lessons that you're going to be unfolding for us is how to really see subjectively and objectively those two terms. Because I get nothing but questions on that and criticism all the time. And it is difficult that people, if a student will say, I can't see, why is the word objective, which you made very, very clear, why is the Christ subjective? Yeah, it's just difficult somehow to assimilate unless you have cultured the tone.
Yes.
Well, the word is a statement of God saying, I am mind, I am spirit, I am soul. All
Yeah.
And the Christ says that must be coincident with within your very being. You have to not leave that out there.
Yeah.
You have to take that in
Yes.
and make it your own and have it overturn anything
Yeah.
that is unlike that word.
And so the idea, you see, the idea that is brought out through the Word as the Christ is at last finally seen to be totally subjectively one with the Word as the Word. The Word and as the Christ brings out complete subjectivity, coincidence in nature and operation with the Word as the Word. It's a very good question. They're all good questions, and you see that there's no end to what comes forth from these days of creation.
I'm just taking it as a point of making it practical. Not just from the story, but to take it into culture,
Yes,
consciousness.
yes.
And of course, that's what the Christ
That's subjective.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're blessed.
So
Yes.
you also reinforce the view of, at the point of life, the Word is the Word is the Christ, the Word is Christianity, the Word is science. Just pointing those out.
Oh, yeah. So we're looking at life now. We're in the fifth day. The fifth day has 4 subtones, right? Because life says, I am mind, I am spirit, I am soul, I am principle, right? Life is mind, life is spirit, life is soul, life is principle. But the time sense is going out. The eternal values are coming in. The numerals of infinity are taking place. Our consciousness is being reshapen, you might say, is being ascended out of a daze of creation sense to begin to see these are eternal values that we are dealing with. Life is lifting it. Yeah, life lifts it. There's an ascension at the point of life. The ascension of life to keep lifting and lifting and lifting the story. And so life would show that we can even see that those four that we thought were mind, spirit, soul, principle to us, an ascending way in the word order, the ascending view of what creation is now. Creation is somehow taking on such an identity and an individuality that we begin to see it in terms of the calculus. We can begin to see it that actually it's the word of life. You see, the life is the center of the order, the crux of the order, and that word is the word of life, actually the word of life in and of spirit, and that word has four aspects to it. The word of life has four aspects. Word is word, word is Christ, word is Christianity, and word as science. No, it's on. It's okay.
That's like composing, because when we do the matrices, and the way you've led us into this with all of the other classes that you've given, with these wonderful layouts and matrices, that teaches us how you're constantly overforming those 7 and the 4 and the 4 in different categories. So
Yeah.
we have to know our categories so well that when you make that transition verbally in your translation and bringing the story together, we hear that. It becomes a category immediately. The tones form that for you.
Yeah.
It can't be done intellectually.
Yeah, that's right. It's living with the tones, isn't it? Hasn't it been that over the years that we've been living with the tones and keep on exposing ourselves to those tones? And thank God you keep coming back, or else I would be talking to myself about the tones, but someone likes to hear it, and that gives me a resonance, a wonderful resonance. Just think, this is being itself communicating, conscious of itself. It's not really people. It is the 7 and the 4 being conscious of itself. That's what we are right here. The system being conscious of itself. Isn't that marvelous? Not people who know and don't know and need to know more and didn't quite get it. And that seed is already within us. The seed that is within itself is already within us. Doesn't Mrs. Eddy say somewhere in prose works that seed is really divine science? Your present understanding is divine science. This is enough, because it's the whole pattern. The whole pattern is there. The pattern of the 7, the pattern of the 4, the pattern of the 4. The whole system is within us, already. Whether we think we know it or not, whether we, even coming for the first time, because you know, I know that I say something, well, it either falls flat or somebody says, yeah. What is that? When I get some kind of a feedback that you agree, it isn't just because you're being nice, it's because there's a resonance there. There is a coincidence there. There is a oneness of subject and object there.
Terrible.
Yeah. Oneness with what I say out of my consciousness, the consciousness of the categories, and your consciousness of the categories. The same consciousness. This is subjectivity. Now, nothing can establish that but the Christ. That's the office of the Christ, to render God's understanding and our understanding to be the same understanding.
Are there two more names? I mean, first you got object and then subject. Do you have something that follows that same line for the other two?
Subject and object.
Where?
First you have object of mind, spirit, and soul, and then you have half of soul, principle, and half of life as
She wants to
subject.
categorize the other
Uh-huh.
verticals.
Well,
Universal and infinite or
No.
something? Or?
no.
No.
No, I think we just have
Object
to,
and object
to-
permeates each one.
I think we just don't try to do that. Stop it, right now. Don't go there. Yeah, I think we just have to be true to the categories of Word, Christ, Christianity, and science.
Well, she was
And-
hearing individual, collective, and universal, too.
Or
Yeah,
line
so-
playing, you know how you
Yeah,
have
so
the...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if there is something there, it will come out of our tonality of the
Right.
category.
I didn't know if there was something
Yeah,
already
not
known.
that I am aware of. Yeah, except that what we will see now, coming into the Word as Christianity, is multiplication and dominion. See? Whereas we've said it's been the abundant translation of the seed within itself, and or the primal creative
Christianity
elements.
Are you talking about?
Thank you, very good. As we go on through the 7 days of creation, we are moving now. You see that we come to the climax of the Word as the Christ, and move into the Word as Christianity, which begins at life as soul and closes out the life tone, life as soul and life as principle, and moves over to the tone of truth and begins to pick up the remaining sense of multiplication and the dominion of truth, and closes out at truth as principle. And then there is a shift again into the Word as science, and at the point of truth as life, truth and love, and love as truth and love as love. We see the Word as science, namely as the sense of wholeness and completeness and infinity. Yeah. So my use of the term subject and object is out of my tonality of the Christ. This is why I refer to it when I'm talking about the Word as the Christ, and also it comes up in the text, I'm happy to say.
If I understand, just looking at that, what I think is interesting about it is, and correct me if I'm not understanding this, that even though it says at the end of each day, and it was done and so it was good, each day isn't just by itself. In other words, because the Word transcends on several different days into the next word, the days are connected and kind of roll into each other, because it's
Oh,
just
yes.
not on the first day something happens, and then you're
Mm.
done with Word on that day.
Absolutely,
It goes
yeah.
on. So that still makes sort of a continuity out of the whole thing.
Oh,
just
yes.
Out of the days.
Right,
So
right.
you can't just say on Thursday, well.
On Thursday.
Didn't mean to put it in a day. I mean, on the third day, you can't just say it was the Word is the Word and let it be done. I just think it's interesting that a day, I'm stumbling over this.
Well, what you're really saying, they aren't parts.
Right.
It's a whole.
It isn't
Yeah.
just, they're not insular, you know, I mean, they aren't isolated. You
Yes.
can't just say on one day this thing happens, because more than one idea is going on at a time on a given day. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
the Word is
so-
Word and the Word is Christ happening on the
Yes,
same day.
yes,
You
there's,
can't just deal with one particle like what you were saying.
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
So
It's,
that's correct, right?
I guess we would call it non-linear, if we
Yeah.
could borrow that term.
And you can see
Yeah.
that, you know, on the diagram. That just struck me, which I think is interesting, because we've been talking about it all this time.
Well, that's the kind of experience you want. You want it to strike you. This is the oneness of subject and object. Had to get that
The
in.
subject, you've got it all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was a very, very nice session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would you meet with me this evening for a little while, and we'll see what we can do to move ahead?